Well, hello, everybody. I am so excited today to bring Michelle Robinson to you for a Your Story Matters conversation. Michelle is a cancer survivor, and she really found a foundation in yoga and how it's been able to bring some balance into her life as she juggles all the hats of being a mom and a stepmom, a wife, a dog mom. I'm excited to dive in with Michelle today because she has taken her passion and her love for yoga, how it has brought a deeper understanding of who she is, where she's going, and how she's been able to use this avenue to bring in a deeper awareness of her body. And so with her passion, she has launched a business called Ambiance Yoga, where she does one-on-one group sessions online, which is super exciting for me because I love being able to do business without borders. And she also does private in studio sessions, one-on-one and group. So I'd love to hear more about Michelle's story and her journey that what has brought her to this space of being able to take her passion and share it with the world. And being a cancer survivor, that is like a huge feat. So we could just start like how that health journey kind of transpired for you and what brought you to this space of yoga and how you were able to take that health struggle and come into this avenue of personal development.
Thank you so much for having me join you part of this conversation. It's nice to be able to connect like this, like you said, without borders in across obviously Canada and well, wherever else it might go. So yeah, cancer, that kind of hit me like a ton of bricks 7.5 years ago at a really spectacular time in my life. I was a new mom. I had a 3-month-old baby when I received word that I also received cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a real shock to the system, and certainly not one that anybody expects to kind of hear. It came out of nowhere. And interestingly enough, it actually came about while we were trying to get pregnant through varieties of medical examinations and blood work that started to reveal something wonky. But because of the nature and style of cancer, it was kind of pushed aside to ensure that the pregnancy was top priority. So then to be handed the cancer card 3 months into my new motherhood role, yeah, that was a really big hit in uncertainty and a lot of fear, a lot of anger. I can tell you that, big time for sure. Yeah, and a big process. So it's been 7.5 years, and I'm not there yet. I don't know that I ever will be. Maybe that's the next life. But I've certainly come a long way because of what I've been able to establish in personal self-care practices that my yoga and Ayurveda understanding and studentship has gifted me with, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So you said, I can't actually fully understand the fear that would come with news like that 3 months after having your first baby, but I can sympathize with the fact that that would be paralyzing news. So how is it that you were able to still function as a mom being given that news?
Oof, that's a good question. Oh my, well, okay, big question. How do I answer that one? Because what's really fascinating is my son is now, well, he'll be 8 in a month, and we have a most remarkable relationship. I feel so blessed that, in my philosophy is that he chose me as a mom and has been a tremendous teacher for me to stay grounded, to stay in this practice of being alive. I think that's all it is, really, is a practice in being alive. So, I mean, initially it was very, very hard. I had emergency surgery 3 months after the diagnosis. So he was just 6 months, which meant because of the style of cancer, it was thyroid cancer. I'm trying to see it as my second smile. I'm not there yet. I told you there's a lot of acceptance, a little bit of anger that's still kind of associated with that second smile that I face every single day. But, you know, being rushed into surgery and then the biggest challenge, aside from, of course, now having to take Synthroid in order to stay functional, was the iodine, the radioactive treatments that I had to receive after the fact, which was really hard, a real hard process of self-isolation, which is also, in some respects, a self-care practice, if you can flip it that way.
Mhm.
Initially, I certainly didn't. I was very, very angry.
Yeah.
It's a reoccurring theme, I think, sometimes, which is probably why my yoga practice has once again been so good for me, because it's allowed me to identify, if nothing else, what anger is and feels like as it arises, and then, you know, be able to name it and, you know, allow it then to process, to move through. You know, much of what I've learned and studied from yoga is that there is no around, right? You can't get around things. This is all about square through the middle, straight through the straight line.
Yeah, the
As
ugly
much as
way.
the ugly way, the really, really hard way. As much as we like to skirt things, they always just end up on the next bend, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, being a new mom, in some ways was a tremendous gift to have with my cancer treatment, because I couldn't just stay in bed. I had a baby who needed me.
Mhm.
And you know, the practice of just keep at it practice is one thing I love about yoga, is that there is no 3 periods, right? There's no 20-minute session and then another period and then another period. There's no end to any of this. It's a process, and it's a
Mhm.
way of, you know, instilling practices that help to support and nurture you, you know, along the journey. So yeah, being a new mom, I think a very good gift, that went alongside with the cancer diagnosis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like he gave you purpose to fight, right?
He sure did. He sure did. And what was really interesting about my practice too is how much I was able to just simply do the practice and not be a teacher, right? Because I wear the teacher role all the time. I'm here in my studio on my teacher's mat. And as much as it's fantastic to be a yoga teacher, you know, in my opinion, you can only teach what you understand and practice embodying for yourself. You know, only then can you really teach the wisdom of the concept or the understanding, whether that be 2 + 2 = 4, or there's a mind body connection, you know. So because of what I was practicing, it two things have started to happen. One, I became a teacher unknowingly for him in, you know, self-regulation, coping mechanisms, just being a decent human being and practicing empathy, and
Mhm.
as well as equanimity. And at the same time, because this is an ever evolving practice, there were so many opportunities for him to be my teacher,
Mm.
leaps and bounds for him to be my teacher. You know, pardon me,
Love mom.
at times, you know, there were times when I remember, gosh, I don't think he was 2 years old, and he was really upset. Something happened and he couldn't find a specific toy. I think that's what it was. And he was really, really worked up. And, you know, he came, mommy, mommy, mommy. And he almost couldn't talk to me. He was so worked up. And I said, sweetheart, come sit here. And we sat on our back stairs in our back hallway on the second riser up, because that's the one that he could sit comfortably on. And I said, why don't we take some deep breaths? And so we just practiced breathing in through our nose and a nice big exhale through our mouth. And we did that about 3 or 4 times. And I kid you not, Stacy, that one time was all I ever taught him, because then when he got overwhelmed or just kind of confused, lost, scared, he would say, mommy, 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 can you come breathe with me? And it was like,
Aw.
here's
He's
a 2-year-old who's, you know, reminding me about the power of breath And
Mm.
he hasn't been anywhere in life, right? So, and then at that point too, he became a teacher where if I was upset, he'd say, "Mommy, let's take some breaths," whether it was we're sitting in the car and we're stuck in traffic and we're trying to get where we need to be. And he, in his little voice, would say, "Mommy, let's take some breaths." Wow, talk about a teacher.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Our kids are such sponges. And for you to be able to establish teaching him that simple concept is going to change his life for the rest of his life. Like just having that foundation, that grounding in himself, and knowing that we can do that simple action to come back to reality and process our thoughts a lot more level-headed than when we're all worked up with anxiety, right? That's so
Absolutely. Anxiety is everywhere. It's scattered.
yeah.
And we feel it in our bodies in all different spaces and places, and even have different names that we can attach to anxiety. And the challenge, of course, then becomes, well, where did A come from? And how can I get a hold of it? Well, until you find where it came from, what that stimulus was, and then the thought process that goes with that, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. It's hard. It's hard to do, but once you find it, then you can hone your skills and abilities in that. And for me, understanding and practicing the yoga and the Ayurveda have been, well, it's like finding that needle in a haystack.
So just being in tune with yourself, right? Is just being
It
able to
is.
hear what your body's saying. I'm a huge believer that we have to listen, like stop and just listen, because I had stress almost take me out back in '08, where I was 3 points away from needing a pacemaker. I was knocking on death's door. I was over 200 pounds, showing up anorexic because my body was just repelling the nutrients. And it was stress induced. But I was completely ignorant to listening to my body, because it obviously was giving me warning signs prior to that I was ignoring and just continuing to just plow through life, thinking I was invincible. But my body was like, nope, we're going to take a timeout, girl, and you ain't going to listen. We're going to make you.
Right. Yeah. We're going to shut down. Exactly. And,
Yes.
the yoga practice, it's interesting because a lot of people, when they come to yoga, right, when we start practicing yoga, and I'll admit, when I started practicing, no joke, I had read an article in the late 90s that Madonna was doing yoga and she had just turned 40. And I thought, wow, with a body like hers at her age, sign me up. I'll do whatever it is that she's doing. No joke. Okay. There was a very much a physical attraction to the practice because, well, that's where I was in my 20s. Anyways, so what I've immediately found after my first practice was, whoa, there is so much more to this. The experience of peace, the experience of lightness, and the experience of vitality, and just this vital life force, the essence which is
Mhm.
under the current of the breath, felt alive. And I was like, whoa, there's so much more to this. The
Mhm.
physical postures and practice of yoga help us to get in our bodies. They help us to see that the arm doesn't move right, or that the head won't turn, or that when we go upside down, there's sensations that don't feel right.
Mhm.
And in doing the physical posture practice, we just start to get an understanding of what is amiss. Where is there a disconnect? Where is there a dam, let's say, in the internal workings of our pathways? And only when we start to understand and see the truth in what we can and or cannot do, can we then use appropriate practices to then support, nurture, and heal. Sometimes that comes from us. Sometimes, of course, we have to seek it from other professionals. So yeah, like this kind of blended piece of the yogic practice, and obviously taking it off the yoga mat and into your days, it really is a lifestyle. It's a way to just be your best self.
Yeah, which is a nice reminder, because we can easily get tripped up on what that best stuff looks like.
Absolutely.
Especially if we don't feel valuable or worthy of what our heart's desire is because of the circumstances in our life. Um, when you were going through that healing journey, did you have like much family support? or was it just you and your little man and your hubby, or what did that look like for you?
Great question. So, again, this has been part of my healing journey and healing practice. And I don't know that many people know this about me. So, this is kind of neat that it feels right to share here.
Mm.
And interestingly enough, the thyroid literally slit my throat, right, in order to have this operation. But this journey has been a huge opportunity, I'll use that word, to learn how to say no and learn how to stand up for the truth of who and what I believe I am. I had a lot of support. I had a lot of support for the medical field and industry in getting rid of cancer. Not to start any kind of debate or anything like that, but just to kind of look at perhaps the different philosophies of Eastern versus Western health and well-being. In the Western world, we very much look at how can we get rid of what's there, surgery, drugs, radiation, right? Those are kind of the three big things that we do to quote unquote heal the body. But there's not necessarily a healing the body if we're taking pieces out. In certain circumstances, the only thing that could help me at that stage in my life was to have this removed and then, of course, process. The Eastern way of looking at this, in which yoga and Ayurveda, they're sister sciences. They're like two sides of the same coin. You can't really have and do one without the other. But the Eastern side of health and well-being looks at not just the physical body, but also the self within. So whether you call it, divinity, spirit, soul, whatever it is that sparked the, kind of coming together of two cells way back when in utero in order to then form life or a new life. So Ayurveda looks at the physical body, but it also looks at the spiritual or the self piece and aspect, but as well as the nature, Mother Nature all around us. Is in a constant state of change. And because we're Mother Nature too, we have to learn how to balance this. As women, think of your 28-day cycle and how much changes in the course of 28 days and then literally repeats and has similar peaks and ups and downs and ups and downs. Yeah. Drastic or smaller. So, my support system during my cancer diagnosis was very pro-Western. Get the surgery as fast as you can, get the radiation, get on the drugs. And unfortunately, I had an interesting that, I had miscarried and had carried a baby half term and had to deliver a stillborn, which was so hard. The most deafening experience I have ever had in my life. And part of that is now accepting that I wouldn't have my 8-year-old son, who is a full extension of my heart and my light. And I wouldn't change that for a thing had I not gone through that experience. But when I was diagnosed, because of my age at the time, they were very much, let's get this over and done with as soon as possible. So I had miscarried. We got pregnant a month after that. I carried the baby full term, was diagnosed with cancer, and then was immediately rushed into surgery. I never had a moment to even decide if it was Monday or Tuesday, let alone whether I was going to go under the knife or not. Right. And my family, because again, this is very, cancer is fear. Cancer is end of life. End of life is death. Death is no more us as we know things. Right. So I felt my family, including my husband, whom I love very, very dearly, my mom, my dad, my 2 sisters, all their family, my 3 stepchildren who are grown up and older and have a really great concept and understanding, obviously, of adulthood and these kinds of diagnoses. But they were all very pro, get it done, get it done, get it done. Mm-hmm. And if I had my time back, I would have given myself more time to just sit with the diagnosis. I would have learned how to say, not yet, whoa, let me just understand what's going on in my body. And I wasn't at a specific place in my life where I felt strong enough to do that, and thus relied on people around me. And yet, throughout it all, I had this really, there was a really deep kind of calling from somewhere within. And I'm pointing and holding at my heart space. I don't know if it's there or not, but there was something within that was saying, whoa, 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 why don't you just hit the pause button for a second? Anyhow, I've learned to listen a little bit more to that,
Yeah.
which of course has come from my yoga practice and the acceptance and the less reactive and responsive. I think we live in such a society where, we want it now. I mean, you pick up your phone, you can have the name of any song and all the words and get the video at the same time in an instant. And I think because of this, we as beings are expectant to have the answer now. Let's get it done. Let's do it. And we forget about the stage of process, the stage of acceptance, the stage of acknowledgement, especially when we're thrown a card like cancer that can scare the shit out of us and create such a downward spin and spiral. Right. So I had support, yes, but as much as I love every aspect of it, in some ways, I wish I had had time to just process on my own.
Right. So that there would be no regrets or questioning, like, did I do the right thing? Or
yeah, and like I said, I know I don't say probably, I know I would have had the cancer. I would have had the surgery. And what kind of really bugged me about it was that it was initially kind of discovered when I was pregnant with my first pregnancy. So they had put it off for 18 months, and yet all of a sudden it was a rush. So it really kind of created an interesting discord, if you will, and almost a bit of disgruntledness in me.
Yeah.
And a bit more anger because all of a sudden it was a rush when it wasn't 18 months ago. So yeah, that's a really interesting question because I'm so grateful. I'm beyond grateful for the fact that I had immediate attention and that, I had the best of care, that I had a speedy recovery, that my husband was able to take some time because of course we had a 6-month baby at home. Who's going to raise the baby while I'm in the hospital, right? And even to have my parents close by that they could, kind of support us, our family and our son in that way. But I feel, and this has been part of my process of healing, is in, learning how to pause, how to step back, how to not react in a response, but rather, I don't know, take a deep breath.
On the step.
On the step. Sit on the stoop and take a breath. I don't think we give ourselves enough time for that.
We don't.
The alarm. Yeah, the alarm goes off in the morning and we hit the floor running, right? So, to try to remember these practices is number one. All we can do for ourselves is just try to remember. And then in the remembering, find the practice. Right. So, for me, breathing is a huge, huge piece of what I do every single day. It has to be, because if it's not there, then I'm a wreck and I'm already messed up enough.
I'm with you, sister. I'm a hot mess if I don't keep in check. But I have another question when it comes to the anger, because from what I understand about anger is that it can suck the life out of your bones, like cause more conflict within your vital system. So do you feel that the anger, if it goes without this breath work and recognizing it and trudging through it, like you said, going right down the middle of what that anger entails and trying to navigate and heal what's stimulating that anger, do you feel that your body's got different sensations, or is it saying certain things to you in regards, they're like, hey, this isn't right and we need to deal with this, like stat?
Does it ever?
I just like to
So
talk about that because there's so many
yeah,
people that do get caught up in the anger, and it can, like you said, it spirals us and it paralyzes us to the point where we don't want to actually function in our day to day. And then we have our outbursts and we put like toxicity all over our relationships, but physically our body will tell us. So explain to the community how that has manifested in your body and how you've been able to, like, hey, the spell's going off, let's go get to the mat.
absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, let's see how I can kind of sum this up. And at the same time, I'd love to offer just a simple little practice, something that I use and do quite often.
Yeah.
Okay, so first anger. So one of the things that I love about yoga is how much it has turned me on to the language that my body is speaking.
Mm.
So our bodies are constantly talking. Our bodies remember everything that we have ever done and been exposed. We're nothing but, a bunch of cells that have mutated, changed, grown, split, divided, all those kinds of things
Oh.
repeatedly over and
Yeah.
over and over again. That's it, right? Over and over again. So everything that we've been exposed to, had experience with, that's all in our bodies, right? It's here. It's here with us, from the clouds and the sun to the smoke from the 1980s airplanes that we used to fly in, all of those things. So yoga has really helped me feel and become aware of where these, I'm going to call them deposits of anger kind of drop into my body, and the way that I cope or think I cope, mostly in the past by kind of avoiding or turning away from it completely, like ignoring it.
Right.
So interestingly enough, you saw me kind of touching at my heart. I've had a lot of shoulder rib things going on, so I'm prone to dislocating a rib. Not really good being a yoga teacher when you're practicing downward dog. What is interesting is that this, if we think of the space and place where my rib, so it's on my upper back, where my rib, has too much flexibility, not enough strength, or too much pull. I'm right side dominant as well. So there's, kind of a couple commonalities that might pull this out. There's certainly physical things that I am doing that, yes, can aggravate this. But where the rib is on the back is right at the seat of the cardiac plexus. Right? So plexus is a nerve bundle that, and nerves go out to specific areas. When you apply the lens of yoga and Ayurveda to this, of course, this is the space and place of the heart, or what we call the Anahata chakra. And it's an extension of our hands and our arms, it kind of radiates out. It, of course, goes up and down and goes front and back, this kind of energetic presence, we'll say. But if you think of the heart, what are one of the main emotions associated? It's the practice of love, right? And love, opposite being, hate or even fear, stay on the kind of emotional continuum. We have love, compassion, joy, acceptance. And then the opposite side of that is fear, hate, disgrace, anger. So this has been a real, almost significant space and place within me to remember to practice. And I feel this, I'm like, whoa, I got to practice a sense of personal compassion, right? I now have a, really unhappy rib, arm, and shoulder, which prevents me from, even brushing my hair sometimes. And therefore, an opportunity to remember to practice acceptance and a sense of self-love, right? So that's one way it certainly flares up.
Yeah, it's like, hello, we need to take
Hello.
it out.
Interestingly enough, another way that I find anger flaring up, kind of in a physical sense, is every now and then I'll get these random pimples. I'm like, how is it possible that I'm almost 44 years old and I get like a major pimple, like right here? Sure, there's hormones associated with that, but I know that there's pieces and parts because I remember the flare-ups. Most of the time, that pimple is associated with the fact that I got so angry. I went to the grocery store, bought the biggest chocolate bar I could find, and I didn't just have a bite, I ate the whole thing. Did it make me feel better? No, it did not. Have the zit. as a nice reminder as you look at yourself in the window, right?
Yes.
So all of these pieces and this stuff helps me to just more clearly understand when, how, what anger is arising, so that I can hopefully manage it instead of spew it out on somebody else. You know, that's the worst. And I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect mother, and like, it happens, and I have yelled inappropriately at varieties of people, including my son. You know, you get to a point where you've had your capacity, and all of a sudden you're like, you just lose it, and you know, it's part of being human. The big thing that I have, you know, kind of come to understand, and more importantly to practice, is that I step back. I used to go for long walks. I don't need that anymore. I feel like I have a better self-regulation. But I take a time out, funnily enough, take some deep breaths, and then I come back out and I actually apologize. I say I'm sorry. I explain what was going on that kind of led to the outburst that may very well have had something to do with the other person, but most often had nothing to do with the other person. And it was just a series of events that unfolded that then, you know, the steam kettle blew up. And that was that moment of reactive reaction and an outburst of anger. So, you know, the practice of yoga, as much as it's helped me to listen to my body, Ayurveda, that sister science, has been a real interesting process in understanding kind of a psychosomatic, psychokinetic activity that is awake and alive in all of us if we decide to turn the channel on and start listening to it.
That's right. And really, if you do listen to it, it can navigate or help you dodge a lot of confrontations if you can be in tune with it, right? Because sometimes, like, I hear, you know, people get frustrated or feel unvalidated or unappreciated in their homes because they're constantly serving their families. But a lot of the times we have this uncommunicated expectation that they should just appreciate me because that's what I would do, right? But we often put the expectation on how we would respond to a specific situation on others, and meanwhile they're wired different. They got different elements in their processing, and body language and the way they receive and give love is different. Everything is so different. But if we can be in tune and know how to self-regulate, know how to pause, take a step back, embrace some self-love. I was telling a girlfriend of mine this weekend, is like, it's great that, you know, we want these healthy relationships, but if we don't start with ourselves, we can't show people how we want to be treated. Like, we have to start with our own selves, so that others can see, like, oh, that she loves and honors and respects herself, so I better love and honor and respect her. I'm going to lose her, right? It does start. It starts with us, and we have to be able to be sensitive to what our bodies are saying, and knowing that self-regulation and what our triggers are. Because it's not usually about the socks on the floor, is it? It's never really about the socks on the floor. But that would be the straw on the camel's back.
Exactly. You know, and part of this, what was I just going to say? Part of this is understanding, like, no, where did this idea and notion of perfectionism come from? You know, this drive to have it perfect.
It's the Instagram filters.
Sure, exactly. You know, like, people see yoga and there's this body on a beach with like exquisite lines, and I'm like, some days all I can do, I see these things going around on social media with a woman in child's pose at the grocery store in the middle of an aisle, and it says, my yoga teacher told me to take child's pose whenever I need it. And of course, she's surrounded by her groceries, just lying there on the floor in the grocery store. It's exactly, because most of yoga is about just simply pausing, breathing, self-assessing, checking in, and not performing these gymnastic feats, which are a great portion of the practice if you're ready to go there, sure. generate the strength and the tonality to do that, but that's not the be all and the end
happen
all.
right out the gate. Your first time on the fence, you're not going to be able to do those things.
Not many people strap on a pair of running shoes and run a marathon the first time either, right?
No.
It takes training.
Absolutely.
It takes, you know, consistent showing up in order to do that. I forget, there was something else I was going to say, but that's okay. It may or may not come up if it's stimulated too. So yeah,
that's okay. No, I just love this conversation, and I love how you are celebrating being a survivor, being able to say that you're a survivor. So you get to watch your son grow up. That is like huge. And that you've had the support, but at the same time, it's also given you time and space to really dive in and perfect your craft and your passion for yoga, and how you can now take your knowledge and spread it with the world. You did say you were going to share one of your exercises with us, so I'd love to know how that can help us.
Absolutely. So yogically speaking, quick history lesson. Yogically speaking, there are 8 limbs. We're just going to say that. There's a tree and it's got 8 limbs off it, and each limb is a specific style, kind of self-care or practice. And one of those limbs is the yoga postures, the downward dogs, the handstands, the back bends, those kinds of things.
Okay.
Another one of those limbs is breathing. We call it pranayama. And there are a lot of different pranayama exercises that can be utilized for a variety of different reasons. One of the ones in which I use daily is a simple practice in alternate nostril breathing. So we can do one of 2 things. One, we can actually assist ourselves and do the alternate nostril breathing. Or we can just visualize and get a sense for the different nostrils. So if you're feeling okay with using your hand on your nose, then let's do that one, because it's a little bit easier to get a sense for, you know, the dualities, the polarities, but as well the kind of unity, the kind of coming together, and what that full breath experience actually starts to feel like when it happens.
Okay.
Sound good? Okay. So we call these in our hands. So we do postures in our body. They're called asanas. When we do postures with our hands, they're called mudras. So your left hand is going to find what we call chin mudra, or the seal of knowledge. And then you're just going to rest that hand on your leg, on your lap. And of course, you want your body to be comfortable. If you're sitting on the floor like I am, you can sit cross-legged. If you're sitting in a chair, I invite you to kind of come to this front edge so that your spine can be upright in its own accord. And ideally, your feet nice and firmly planted on the floor. And so that left hand is just resting in that chin mudra, index finger and thumb together on your left thigh, knee, or other part of your leg. Your right hand, we're going to find what we call Vishnu mudra. So you take your peace fingers, and for our practice this afternoon, we're going to just fold them into our palms. So then you have the ring and pinky sticking up and your thumb sticking out. Kind of like a.
Okay, I'm going to have to switch hands. Is it okay if I switch hands?
Are you left-handed?
I'm right-handed, but I had sliced the palm of my hand and to do kind of like.
Oh, well, you can keep them stuck up then, just like this. Keep them sticking up. How does that feel?
Okay, yeah.
Right hand sticking up.
That sounds good.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. There you go. See, there's always modifications. This is what I love about yoga. There's 9 million ways to do one simple little thing. And we just learned how to find a way that works best for you. So yeah, so you can just keep your 2 peace fingers up, and they'll just kind of rest, well, what we call the third eye, the space kind of up above your eyebrows. I'm going to fold mine in. I find that a little bit more comfortable. But those 2 peace fingers anyways, they're not really part of it. They just need to be out of the way, either tucked in or sticking up. So the other 3 fingers, or 2 fingers in your thumb, are going to alternately switch and plug one nostril at a time. Okay, so there's nothing really fancy to see or to look at. Your thumb will plug your right nostril, your ring and your pinky will plug your left, and all we're going to do is just practice breathing in and out through one nostril at a time. Sometimes Kleenex comes in handy for this one. Okay, so literally just sitting up nice and tall. I'm going to close my eyes. It just helps me to be better in the embodiment of both the teacher and student practice. Okay. So you're going to hold your right hand in front of your face, just gently, and you can just kind of tuck your elbow in onto your chest. Again, sit yourself tall, close your eyes. You're not going to do anything to start except breathe. So I want you to take a nice breath in through your nose. And then a nice breath out through your nose. You do this just a couple more times. A nice breath in through your nose. And a nice breath out through your nose. A couple more times, just feeling, if you can, the breath as it moves in the nostrils. And then back out again. So you might notice some stuff, you might not notice anything, and that's okay. Just keep breathing easily through both nostrils here. All right, take a nice full deep breath in through both nostrils. Plug your right nostril with your thumb and exhale through your left nostril. Now inhale through your left nostril. Plug your left nostril and then exhale through your right. And then inhale through your right. Plug your right with your thumb and exhale through your left. Inhale through your left. Plug your left. Exhale through your right. Inhale through your right. Plug that right nostril. Exhale through your left. Let's keep going a few more cycles. Inhale through your left. Plug your left. Exhale through your right. Inhale through your right. Plug your right. Exhale through your left. Inhale through your left. Plug your left. Exhale through your right. Inhale through your right. Plug your right. Exhale through your left. Let's do one more cycle. Inhale through your left. Plug your left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Plug right. Exhale left. At the end of your exhalation, relax your right hand on your thigh like your left is, and just breathe through both nostrils nice and slowly. Nice slow inhales and exhales. Just getting a sense now for, the difference between working with one nostril at a time and perhaps any congestion or stuckness that you might have felt. And now both nostrils is supporting the ebb and flow of your breathing. How rich and full the breath can come in and move out. And perhaps with it, the easeful state, the soft gentleness in your body, mind, and in your heart. And with your next inhalation, slowly let your eyes open back up to the space around you. How did that feel?
No, it's good. Like just, it actually focusing on the opening and closing of each side actually shuts your brain off. So it's not like running off on a marathon on its own. It's really
You got
great.
that right. Well, we know right side brain, left nostril, right side brain, left side body, and opposite that, right? So when we breathe like this, we're actually helping to stimulate and balance out the neural networks of our brain hemisphere. Yeah, there's some interesting science behind all this, which is why we typically get this kind of really grounded, calm, and kind of this unified state in our body mind continuum experience.
It's awesome.
Mm,
Such a simple concept as well. Like so easy, you can do it anywhere.
yeah. Listen, 3, 5, 15 minutes of that a day will tremendously change your life. It's amazing. Talk about an anti-anger venom.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to share that with a couple friends of mine.
Yeah.
So this has been absolutely wonderful, Michelle. If anybody wanted to jump in and partake in some of your courses or where your studio is located, you want to tell them where that is. If they wanted to join you live, if they're living down the street from you, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us
So,
about how they can
yeah,
get connected.
yeah. The studio is called Ambiance Yoga and Wellness. Of course, we are primarily a yoga studio with branches of wellness throughout, both here in the studio, as well as we have a couple of treatment rooms that we operate. Massage, Reiki, nutritional counseling, Ayurveda, those kinds of things, lifestyle coaching out of. And we're located in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, little community of Spryfield. Yeah, our website, ambianceyoga.com. You can find all kinds of different things, including links to digital libraries, a free YouTube channel. And then I've also been doing my best to kind of journal some of my journey. Kind of got a little off track, but I'm going to get back to it. So a regular kind of monthly and weekly blog and newsletter in which I do my best to share through my own experience all these little drips of practices that have, helped me to arrive to the state and place of well-being that I'm at today. So yeah.
That's great. So your website, Ambiance Yoga, it has all your classes, workshops, one-on-one, any of that kind of stuff's
Correct.
all mentioned in there. So
Yeah.
great. And would you ever want to come and join the community and do a live session here just so that they can get a feel and vibe for your style of teaching?
Yes, absolutely. We could do that for sure. I'll put my mic on and away we go.
Get into teacher mode.
Exactly.
I love it. I would love that. And I know that the community would most likely, I know that a lot of them, not a lot of them, but I have had members reach out to me and ask me about meditation and different things like that. So this would be a really good practice to share for sure.
That's another one of those 8 limbs, that meditation piece. That's
Yeah, so
another
what are all the
Yeah.
8 limbs? You got poses,
Ooh.
breathing.
Yeah. So, okay, let me break them down into Sanskrit and non-Sanskrit. So let's say limb number 1 is yamas. So those are the kind of personal restraints or the ways that we kind of help ourselves move through our lives. We have niyamas. So yama, niyama. Niyamas are our observances, so the ways in which that we can help to live our lives in our communities. And they instill qualities and practices like kindness, equanimity, truthfulness, cleanliness and purity, balance, like this non-hoarding or not exerting yourself or overindulging. So little kind of hints of that. So those actually make up 10, but in 2 limbs.
Wow.
So then we have the yoga, which we call asana. Those are the postures that we do. Then we have the pranayama, which was our breathing that we practiced. And there's many, many different ways in which we use our breath practice, both on and off the mat. Then we have pratyahara. And pratyahara is oftentimes kind of translated as sensory withdrawal. But it's not so much that you want to just, put earbuds in and put an eye mask over your eyes. Sensory withdrawal is basically learning how to turn up the volume of your inner energies, your inner, the inner dialogue, the language that your body is speaking, and the way that we are kind of processing everything in our lives, and to see if we can turn that down so we can turn up the volume of what our body is speaking. So that's pratyahara, that's stage 5. Then we have dhyana, which is meditation. Dharana, which is concentration, or I should say it's concentration and then meditation, but you can do these in any kind of specific order. You learn how to focus, how to concentrate. And we do that all the time, right? You're concentrating, you're doing the task at work, and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, whoa, where did 4 hours go? That's a state of concentration. You just learn how to then use that concentration in a mindfulness or meditative way. And then the last of the 8 limbs is what we call samadhi. And samadhi is, that's a big one. It's kind of a blissful state of being. I'm working on understanding that one.
That's the joy of the practice, is that it doesn't have to be perfect, and not one day is ever going to look the same. So
no, never.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I very much appreciated you coming and sharing your story, and just how this practice has made such a difference in your life. And now you get to share this passion with others and to make transformation happen for them. So good for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite, and for whatever universal alignment happened that made our ends meet and make this come to life. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.